Welcome, visionaries and change makers, to Lead with LeAnn, where we navigate the waters of business with heart and purpose. Airing every week at 2 p.m. Pacific time, exclusively on winwinwomen.tv. It's the place to be. I just came up with that. It's kind of funny. I'm LeAnn Lyon, your Chief Joy Officer, here to empower you with strategies, insights, and a splash of fun. Every single week on Lead with LeAnn, you'll join me as we delve into the inspiring stories of established leaders and innovative entrepreneurs. And we've got one of those this week. We'll uncover just what it takes to build a brand from scratch, lead with authority and grace, and turn business aspirations into tangible success. So anchor down, set your sails, and let's dive into the art of joyful leadership. Get ready to be inspired, because your journey to business brilliance starts right now, because we are bringing on soon Ute Luppertz, and she is the founder of Pet's Point of View. She's a holistic healing coach for animals, a senior pet specialist, a pet death doula, and an animal communicator. So one of the most amazing aspects of Ute's work is the transformation that occurs when people and animals experience their connection on a profound spiritual level. When we truly see and understand our animals, a whole new world opens up. Improving the lives of pets and their humans is a deeply spiritual and joyful mission that inspires Ute every single day. And she's here with us today. Welcome. Are you here? I think she's here. There she is.
Hey, everyone. Nice to see you. Nice to see you.
Good to see you. It's so much fun that I get to meet, you and my other guests earlier, and then we come back and it's like a reunion. So what's new?
What's new is that I'm really excited to be on the show with you, and I can't wait for your questions. Can't wait to share, because I'm really passionate about what I do.
Yeah.
So there you have it. That's it in a nutshell. I love it. I'll do it till I drop. That's kind of.
And you got to kind of meet my 17-year-old cat, Sam, on video, because I
Yes.
did a little pre-video on Facebook today. Isn't he cute? Isn't he the best?
Yes.
He's
Yes.
the best.
Yes. He is the best. Mine are the best. And for anybody who didn't ask but wants to know, I'm a cat slave. So I worship cats. I really. I love
So
dogs too, but I worship cats. Yeah.
I did not prep you on this at all, but do you have like a great cat or anti-cat or dog joke?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's not my joke though. It's
Okay,
not.
that's fine.
No, but it's a really, really good joke. So there are three animals who died, and they go to heaven, and they knock on God's door, and then God opens the door in the German and says, "Okay, what brought you to heaven?" And the German shepherd says, "I was really faithful and protected my person." And God says, "Great, you can sit to the right of my throne." And then a pit bull comes, and God says, "So what brought you to heaven?" And the pit bull says, "I was really affectionate with my humans children, and I guarded the house." And God said, "Great, you can sit on the other side of my throne." And the third one is a cat, and God says, "So what brings you to heaven?" And she says, "Well, you took my seat." Which is, it's kind of a joke, but it's also true.
Yep.
No, they're divine. I say they're royalty. And this is not just cute. It's actually true for a lot of cats, I want to say.
I believe it.
There you have it. That's my joke. And I stole it. I stole
Well,
it.
I stole mine too. So I have one for you too. You may
All
have
right.
heard it before, but
Bring it.
so the dog looks around his world and he says, "Wow, you clean up after me, you feed me, you groom me. You must be God." And the cat says, You clean up after me, you feed me, you groom me. I must be God.
Yeah, yeah,
Same idea.
yeah,
It's pretty much there.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, very much so. Yeah, there are some more really stupid jokes, but
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, we had three, and one day we had two, and it was a really rough day.
yeah,
And it happened during a time when my husband was already recovering from a terrible accident. It happened just weeks after that, and our youngest, who was already just in grief, and that was her cat.
yeah,
And it was just an amazing. That morning she was playing with him. I brought her to Sunday school, and then I had to pick her up from Sunday school and tell her that our cat was no longer with us.
yeah.
And that's the kind of situations that this one of the situations that you're helpful with, I believe.
Yes, yes, very much so. And also when you read the intro, it isn't just spiritual, it's also very physical when we experience grief. So it's not just all rainbows and this and that and the other, and I think that our animals, for many of us, are more like children, even when our kids have a dog or a cat, and it's much more painful in a way for a lot of people when they lose an animal. Not that it doesn't, I didn't say that right, but with humans, we anticipate certain things and we have rituals and it's embedded in the culture, right? With animals, it's like, we know they're dying. You can get a new cat, you can get a new dog, and that's sometimes what people need to do. So there's nothing wrong with that. But there are not enough buffers and support systems to really honor the profound connection. There's also, it's just a cat, it's just a dog, la, 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 la. I mean, yeah, you keep talking, but please don't talk to me. So for me, a soul is a soul, right? And I do my utmost best to support people in navigating this, honoring what they are experiencing. We're not glossing over anything, but how can we also make it a sacred experience? How can we keep our connection? And you don't have to be a member of a New Age church for that, actually. I'm not selling like, oh yeah, blow up your purple rain, purple balloon or anything like that. So for me, there is something so tremendous about the connection that we have. I also want to acknowledge there are probably people, and I'm one of them, who had very complicated relationships because the animals had trauma or behavior issues or what have you. And there is still a way to transition through this loss of the physical presence of the animal with much more grace than we are conditioned or programmed to believe, And if I can elaborate on that a little bit,
Please go ahead.
I can tell you a story. And that's, a client of mine, she had a dog. She was with her dog before she got married. The dog watched her have her babies at home. And Zoe was 15 when she died. And the girls were 5 and 7 years old, and the husband came after the dog. So Zoe was first. Mom was with Zoe. Then she married. Then she had her babies. And then eventually it was Zoe's time to cross over. And we very worked together very, very, very closely on that. What can we do? What is resonant for the family to do? They had all of these ideas. And I said, okay, those are great ideas. Would you like more ideas? And when anybody listens to this, thinks, what is she talking about? What I'm talking about is, for example, most companion animals get euthanized. Some die naturally, but most get euthanized. And when that is the case, I often mention to people, if they want to know, would you consider doing this at home? It is much less stressful and you can prepare your space, and this is now very common for a lot of people. And there, in many cities, there are services that you can enlist, or even your own veterinarian could do it, right? So back to big old girl Zoe. We talked about how can she work this with her children, how can she prepare her dog, how can she do the research on who is the right veterinarian for the end of life, cremation, you name it. People do different things,
Uh-huh.
right? And then with the kids, we talked about including them to a certain extent. And the girls, they created a box for Zoe, and the family's description was Zoe goes to heaven. So that was their language. You know,
Yeah.
we all have different language. And the girls made a box and they put in drawings, dog cookies, a key to heaven, a photo of Zoe so that God makes sure he knows this is our Zoe, and a wishbone. So they did all of this artwork and they had a box for Zoe. And then Zoe's time came. The girl said goodbye. They went to grandparents. And then my client and her husband, they stayed with the dog when she was euthanized. And we talked about this at great length. So for the girls, it was amazing to participate and help their dog. And with very young children, they're often much more matter of fact when they're not suddenly going like, what happened? And someone tells them the dog went to the big farm or something like that, you know? So the girls felt like we got a good send off package for her, right? And then a few weeks later, and this was all arranged behind the scenes, the mailman brought a box from Zoe for the girls with Zoe's ashes. And
Oh,
family, and this is one story, but anybody who hears this, you have your own family rituals, you have your own things in your family, especially with children,
yeah.
you know? And then these were outdoor people. They went on hikes and camping trips, and, you know, they were out and about most weekends. And then they had taken Zoe with them throughout her life until she couldn't walk anymore. And then a few weeks after Zoe's passing, and they received the box, and they were like, oh, this is exciting. Zoe sent us her ashes. You know, it was like joyful for the children. And then they made some dream catcher thingies, and they went on this long hike, and every stop on the hike that Zoe loved the most, they spread some of her ashes. I get chills just talking about this. This was many years ago, but this is an example of where grief was honored, but also she was celebrated and everybody was included. So for me, that is one of my favorite scenarios when people ask me about children. You know, when we have older children, they might have other ideas of what they can do, you know? So many options. And for me, this is a highlight of how we can actually make it into a beautiful memory, you know? And not just like the dog is dead or the cat is dead and ugh. And then people pat you on the back for a little bit and everybody moves on with their lives. You know, we don't have celebrations of life. And I'm like, why shouldn't we? Why shouldn't we? You know?
Yeah.
I had a situation, and you might have more questions. I want to share one more example. One of my own dogs, my dog Toddy, he was very loved. And the last day of his life, we still were at the clinic. So we thought he would cross over a day or two later. He was really, really, really close. And so, and he passed away that weekend. And I had a hospice support group at my house. And then I thought, okay, who was Toddy? Toddy was a beagle who loved life. When he had cancer, he really didn't care until the very last moment, you know, and he had a lot of high level care. Also, I was lucky enough to afford that for him at the time. And then I thought, what would be a Toddy thing to do? Would it be moping? No. Would it be food? Yeah. Of course. You know, anybody who has a dog knows food. Yeah. And so a few weeks later, I had another hospice support group and I decided to have a party for him and invited the entire vet clinic. And they were like, oh my God, you invite us to our house? I said, yeah, you carried him to my car. And I kid you not, I never had better food in my house. People brought hot toddies to drink. We had a slideshow. My house was packed with people. I never have that many people when I have a birthday or anything. I have people who like me, but Toddy had a fan club. And was I sad? Yes. But was it an explosively beautiful celebration who represented who he was? Yes. That is one example. And other people might say, you know what, I'm totally sad. I don't want to do that. And I'm like, I'm just telling you of what could be. And you tune in with yourself. What is good for you?
Yeah.
How do you need to be true to yourself and honor who you are and honor your animal?
Yeah.
So
Well, he was the one that we did bury. He was a big orange cat, Garfield type orange cat. And
yeah,
everybody knows orange cats are really the best. And and of course it was so sudden and it was the spring and we had so much else going on and our oldest was graduating and we had just it was a tough time to also incorporate this. And so like you said, in our family, we put together all the videos, all the pictures we could find. We created a space for him and wrapped him in a blanket that he liked and did the things. And also planted, because he was an orange cat, my daughter and I went and found orange roses and
perfect.
planted orange roses, which then bloomed every year for all the rest of the years that we were there.
Yeah,
And so, you know, that was again something for us to be like, when we see orange roses, and that was our thing. So it's just that
beautiful.
there's lots of ways to do it. But it's not just about end of life with pets. You also do pet communication. And here I have another one for you. So we have Sam. You met Sam. And then our youngest, the same one now, she's all grown and she has her own apartment and all the things. Well, she got lonely and she's like, I want a cat. And rather than getting a kitten, which you know how unpredictable that can be and how long term that can be, well, we had her 12-year-old, one of our other cats. And our two, Sammy and Elliot, didn't really seem to ever like each other. Like if they communicated, it was to hiss
Yeah,
and just walk away. So we're like, you know what? They're not friends. They're not buddies. They don't groom each other. They don't hang out near each other if they can avoid it. They might be on the same bed, but that's because we're there. And
yeah,
then so we thought, well, they won't mind. I tell you what, Elliot and Sammy now live in two different places, and they are always they meow a lot, both of them. And I think they are looking for the other one, even though they didn't seem to get along. When we brought them back together, though, for like a holiday or something,
yeah,
it's also interesting to see they still avoid each other. They still
yeah,
hate, you know.
yeah.
It's so weird.
You know what we sometimes forget, and this sounds weird, but I say it.
Oh
We
yeah,
don't
go for it.
tell them what we're doing. We talk about them and they're there, and they're not humans, so they don't speak English. But what you could do is just by mitigate that by filling them in. By the way, Elliot is with, what is your daughter's name?
Malin. Malin.
Malin, you
Yeah.
know, he is with Malin. So the connection is still there because the animals are often like, excuse me, I'm in the room. You talk about euthanasia, you talk about this, you talk about that. So, you know, we would never just cart off one child without telling the other. And energetically, so please, you know,
Yeah, it's
energetic,
true.
right? We wouldn't just say,
Yeah.
oh, your sister is, you know, you hated your sister and now she's with Aunt Millie. No, we would, you know, um, and with the cat, with animals, we often we are strategizing around what's best,
Hmm.
but we forget to energetically connect with them and show them what we're actually doing.
Yeah.
You know, so not the same as with a human,
Yeah.
but in a way, we omit that step because we
Yeah.
are trained not to think about those steps,
Yeah.
to
And I
just
do think when we brought Elliot back for a holiday, Sam was like, wait, hold on. He's
right,
been gone. Now he's
right.
here. Now
Yeah.
I'm really confused. Yeah.
Yes, cats,
Yeah.
and especially they're so territorial, you know,
Okay.
that it's very, you know, you can bring a dog for a visit. For a cat, it's actually really, for most cats, it's really stressful.
Mm.
That said, the meowing a lot with a 17-year-old cat can have many different reasons, and not just like behavior. It can also be discomfort. And what can they do? You know, you and I, we can complain to each other or say,
Yeah.
honey,
Right.
that, you know, with your husband or whatever you ask him, right? And there are certain ways for them to express themselves that make perfect sense to them, and we don't understand it, you
Yeah.
know,
Of
and I
course.
sometimes these sessions. But in terms of with regards to your animals, you could just really show him energetically where his non-liked buddy or brother is, and vice versa.
Yeah, it's true. And we do. We took. That's very cool. I appreciate that. You know what? So I want to talk a little bit more about you.
Yeah.
You shared your story with
Yeah.
Zoe, and Zoe is the church I go to. So Zoe is the dog that you cared for. And you said it was a while ago. So was that more at the beginning of when you started doing what you're doing, or had you been doing it for a while at that point?
So I came out of the closet in
Ah, there we go.
2010. So I started initially, the work was all about rehab for the nervous system. So I'm a Tellington T-touch practitioner. So I didn't do any of the spiritual stuff. I was really worried, and and I went to a lot of events where people were like, I want my dog to be managed. I don't want my cat to pee outside of the box. And I understand all of that, right? So, and I had like the dog in my life, the teacher dog of all dogs, my dog Shiva. He's featured on my website also. Um, and he passed away in 2007. And that is when I had just finished one of my trainings, and that is when I secretly, I want to say, with friends only, started to do animal communication. People told me all along I should do it. And it took me a good long while before I put that on my shingle because I didn't want to be seen as a fruitcake. My work is also very practical. So anybody who does animal communication with me with a senior pet or with an end of life situation, there are also some very hands-on things that I do with people. I mean, practical things, not just like, ooh, they feel this, they see that. We do that also,
Mhm.
right? So I want to say Zoe's situation happened around 2011-ish, 12-ish, and it was a very long relationship I had with her human. So because there was a very slow decline. So, and she was really loved the work that I did and came to support groups and what have you. So that's a little bit of the timeline. I started out with rehabbing the nervous system because my pit bull Shiva, he was like poster child of trauma. He would have made it to the psych ward if he had been a human under suicide watch. So I had to come up with some things that I didn't know I could do. And this is, when we work with children nowadays also, where how can we calm down the nervous system? How can we provide sensory integration, like when a baby is screaming all the time and all of that.
Right.
And so this is how I started my work. And then people were saying, Ute, he and you have the same eyes. I mean, I have different hair and you should do this. And I'm like, I was like, no, 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 no. I know how to do intuitive work with people, but I figured for animals, you have to have like something like a lightning rod drop on your head and they go like, ah, I can do it. None of that happened. Shiva
Mhm.
died in my home and I had a complete breakthrough moment. Really, I'm not kidding you. I had a total breakthrough moment. And that's when I very gradually reached out to people that knew me and said, can we do this work? And then a dear friend of mine said, I've had it with you being in the, she didn't say it like that. She said, she just booked a speaking engagement for me at a spiritual convention thingy that was held annually. She just booked a speaking slot and the room was packed. And that's the first time that I publicly talked about, ta-da, I do animal communication and these are things that I'm doing. And people were like, this is hot stuff, and I'm forever grateful to my friend that she just said, you got to talk in front of people. You have such amazing experiences. We got to put you out there. And I was like, really? And so I spoke in front of a packed room and
Nice.
people were like, oh, finally someone, and I mean, there are many animal communicators and everybody has their own flavor. And for me, it was like that. I said, okay, I gotta really come out now. People like it, people want it. I was just in the wrong crowd, you know, in the crowd of pet fairs where people parade their dogs around, whether the dogs are stressed or not. And that wasn't the right environment for me. And so
Right.
that's a
Wow.
bit
Very
of
cool.
history. Yeah.
So I have
Yeah.
a follow-up, but I just want to pause for a second. Live streamers, if you're watching this and you're like, oh, I have a question, I have a question. If you're thinking that, come on over to winwinwomen.tv and you will join our Zoom conversation. This is a live conversation. You are not watching a recording. Well, unless you're watching a recording, but but if you're watching it and it's between the hours of 4 p.m. and 5 p.m. Central Time on today's date, then come on over and you can ask your own questions when we get towards the end of the hour. So we're already closing in on half the hour. It's so fascinating to talk with you. We're going to keep going if that's okay with you. And so, yeah, all right. So my next question then is, so you kind of, as you said, it came out of the closet with it all around 2010. Um, so you had just graduated from college at that point, right?
Oh, no, no, no.
Yeah, okay.
No, 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 no.
So let's
That's
back up a
fabulous.
little further.
Hmm?
At what point, what did you do, say, was this something you were doing in your 20s when you were younger?
No, 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 no. So the history of
Yeah,
my career is such. I have a master's degree in special education.
okay.
And so I worked for many years as a foreign language teacher, and then I worked in a private school here in the US. Um, and this whole vantage point, special education, for me, it was like, how do I understand a child that's different? Now we have more labels, we have more resources. When I started my master's,
Mm-hmm.
either were normal or you were special. And that wasn't always a good thing when you were special back in the day. This is like now Stone Ages. But so I worked with kids for many years. And anybody who works with me, they show me a picture of the cat or their dog. I let children talk about it because it matters to them, when they get a new puppy or something like that. And while I was still teaching, my house became like a hub for the discarded ones, so that happened over time. And when I was still a teacher, during that time, I studied nutrition. I had a special needs cat, came as a baby. And then Shiva came and the cats were already there. So I started studying nutrition. Then Shiva, I'm like, oh, great. He needs a therapist. There is no dog therapy out there. So what can I study? I studied Tellington Tea Touch. So there are all of these things that I did from my own animals.
Mm-hmm.
And the lens that like my outlook on life, looking at people that are different and being curious,
Mm-hmm.
and saying, how can I understand you? And not just saying, oh, it's LeAnn. She is like, well, or, but how can I go out of my own way and maybe find a touch point where we can connect? And there have been times when I was successful. There have been other times when it was very challenging. I'm not going to lie, you know. And this whole thing about who are these children, then eventually morphed into who are these animals.
Mm, interesting.
And so, yeah. So it was a beautiful marriage for me in terms of how I look at life and how I'm fascinated by things and people and animals that are a little different. Is it all rosy? No. Is it an incentive for me to expand my horizon? Yeah. Is it inspiring for me to learn things I didn't even know existed because I'm curious? Yes. And that's why I'm so passionate,
So
because
I'm
I'm a
curious.
learner.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm curious. This is something I came across within the last month or so, was just more of an awareness that people who are on the higher spectrum of IQ, so above the standard deviation, and which would put them at I think it's 126 or above, 140 and above is exceptional. Often come across as having a special need or a special, sometimes it's quote unquote diagnosable and they're given a label of um
Okay.
being on the spectrum or one of the things. But oftentimes it's not, you
Yeah.
know. Oftentimes people with an exceptionally high IQ, they just still struggle though because they can't relate to people whose brains don't work as quickly or in the same way that their brains work.
Yeah.
Is it the same with animals?
Um, I don't know.
Okay.
I haven't looked at animals as like, I think that brains get altered by trauma for sure, and
Yeah.
I can see that with animals. Does it, and I don't want to even label it as much.
Yeah.
Um, I want to say, I want to answer it from a different angle.
Sure.
I think, we are taught, we have now more labels for people, and we are very readily assign them being on the spectrum and this and that. And maybe
Right.
that's true. Maybe that's true. But I also think we over labeled sometimes,
Yeah, I agree.
why don't we just meet and try to meet,
Yeah.
with animals, there are certain expectations. A dog has to be obedient and this and that and the other. I like obedience, by the way, in case
Mm.
and cat. So there are stereotypical assumptions that we're making and high expectations of dogs and horses in particular. Cats can get away with a whole lot more. There are not that many cats that sit on demand or do a roll over for you. They're like, yeah, when I'm in the mood, I'll let you know, and then you can,
Mhm.
serve me. So I look at more like what is our limiting programming, and why on earth don't we entertain the notion that each animal is also an individual? Oh, there is a DNA imprint, there is something, I would not eat from the floor. My dog likes it, you know? So there are instinctual behaviors. It's not just all explainable per se. And I'm interested in when they don't perform according to what we expect from the species because they're domesticated,
Mm-hmm.
right? That is where I get curious and say, okay, say a dog, a good example is a dog is shy, or fearful, and they don't approach visitors in the home. And then we often throw our energy at them, we touch them, we don't ask them for their consent, we don't watch their body language. And I mean, this is a little crass, but I say it, and then I say, LeAnn, when I come to your house, do I throw myself at you, sit on your lap and say, I like you so much because we had this live? No, I have certain behaviors that make it socially acceptable, you know? And with animals, we have expectations that they're supposed to do certain things. And I'm like, why should every dog like every person? Why are they not allowed to be fearful? Why is it not okay when your cat wants to hide when there is too much chaos? So this is a very generic description.
Mm.
For me, it's not, are they more intelligent? I would say some are more sensitive and misunderstood. I think it comes back to our emotional intelligence and our willingness to entertain that there is a vast spectrum of behavior. And we learn about DNA as best we can. We learn about breeds as best we can. But I don't want to pigeonhole each dog, each cat into like orange cats are the best. You're not the only one. And then, yes, they are. And guess what else? Black cats are the best.
They are too.
My cats are the best. And there's so many bestest dogs. And there is my cat right here. Hi.
Oh, hello, baby. Hello. Oh, she is beautiful.
Yeah. This is Esme. Yeah.
Esme, beautiful name. Yes. So Sam is not different much, although shorter hair than Esme. Elliot is our black cat that we did find at about 4 weeks old, abandoned in a graveyard. And so an all black, little tiny scrap of a kitten in a graveyard. And he decided we were his people and he would not let us go. Like we started driving away because we're like, we're at my grandmother's funeral. We had to go to reception's the wrong word, but you know what I mean, the wake. And I look in the rear view mirror and here's this little tiny stoop, doop, 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 running after our car. And I'm like, just stop the car. And we picked him up and we tried bringing him around the neighborhood. They're like, nah, cats get dumped in the graveyards all the time. And so he came home with us. Now he is a massively big cat with medium long hair. And when my daughter, who's now has them and moved them to a new apartment recently, they have to license the cat, so it had to go through being checked and all. And they said, "Oh yeah, he's for sure part Maine Coon."
Oh,
And we'd never cared. He was just our cat. And we named him after my
yeah,
grandmother because that's whose funeral we were at the
yeah,
time. And she was just a huge, she could take and love any kind of animal. Where
that's
I'm not all that partial to dogs myself. Visiting my sister recently, and they have a great dog. He's a great dog, but I let him sniff a little. I give him a or two on the head, and then he pretty much leaves me alone, and I leave him alone, and we call a truce, and we're both happy with it. And he gets all the love he needs from everybody else,
good. That's good.
and it's just the
Yeah.
truce that we have.
Yes, that's great. That means you give space.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the point earlier, I hope that came across for me. It's more about how sensitive are they?
Yeah.
Are they more intelligent or not? I don't know. I've
Yeah.
seen brilliantly smart dogs who were messed up and dogs that were like, "Oh, whatever, and they were amazing. So you never know.
Yeah. Well, my husband is very certain that we have the most boring cats because we love watching cat videos and we are terrifically entertained by the cats that can walk, like walk on their hind legs or on their forelegs sometimes, and all the funny, crazy things that the cat videos show. But, we're pretty happy that we just have our cats that we love. So, when you were a child, how many, did you have a lot of pets?
No, I didn't. So
Ah,
this is so interesting. A lot of animal practitioners and especially communicators, they have this like childhood, they had always like animals. I actually grew out, we had the occasional hamster. We had a little cockatiel at some point, but it wasn't really for me, And for me, my story is very different. I actually got bitten in the face by a big German Shepherd when I was 11 years old. Yeah. And talk about trauma. I made a beeline every time I saw a dog until into my adult life, really. And I understand now perfectly well with all of the training that I've had why this dog did what he did. But I was absolutely certain I would never ever work with dogs for the simple reason, that you can manipulate dogs and, make them do things that are not that great. With cats, not so much, And I mean, genuinely traumatized. We're not, I mean, like, like the
yeah.
archetype of the bad wolf jumping into your face. And nothing bad happened, but I was very, very traumatized. And what do I do now? I work with big dogs, often not big, but many dogs are big, who have challenges in being well adjusted or they're old and frail. And little did I know that that would happen.
Ah,
Yeah.
very.
So I started with cats, So cats were always easy and it's a natural habitat for me to be with cats, and I say now I'm bi. So, you know, and then yeah, this dog came to me, this most majestic, wonderful, wounded beast came to me. And that's when I really did learn about the work that I'm doing today. The cats paved the way. I have to pay homage to them. They paved the way, but you never know how you learn things,
Yeah.
And I was so convinced dogs would never be part of my life. And at the heyday, I had like 4 big dogs in my house. you know?
So you, though, when you were, let's say, 8 years old,
Mhm.
too young to maybe be left home alone, but too old to like always you're fairly independent. You could probably go outside and do things. Do you
Yep.
remember what you used to play or do? Did you play doctor? Did you play teacher?
No,
What was
not doctor, not teacher. I played hopscotch. I was on the tire swing a lot. And I put on my mother's makeup in the bathroom mirror
Mhm.
and, wanted to look like Cleopatra. And my mother wasn't quite happy about what I did with her makeup. So I played a lot outside. And I wrote fantasy stories and I had dolls and stuffed animals. And that's about it. So
Okay.
a lot of outside time, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Which I think, I can't speak to exactly generations and stuff like that, but I'm Gen X. And so I was one of the first generations to kind of be more of a latchkey kid, not
yeah,
at 8, but, a little bit older. I came home to an empty house and let myself in and called my mom to tell her I was home from school, on the telephone. This is how you make a telephone
I
for
know,
anybody
I
that
know. And this
thinks
is,
it's like this. It's not. It's like this. And, it had a cord and all the
yep,
things. Um, but yeah, we spent a lot more time outside. We did a lot more well, we didn't have Atari. Atari was new when I was probably almost a teenager before Atari showed up
yep,
you know. So
yep.
yeah, I always had a color television, unlike my parents. But yeah, sometimes I find that there's a correlation though between what we played as a child and what we end up being happy with as adults, and
Mhm.
sometimes not. And that's
Yep.
why I like to ask that question because
Good
sometimes
question.
people don't even see the correlation
Yeah,
necessarily.
yeah. I think
That
excellent question. And for me, it came like uh, in a roundabout way, you know?
yeah, very much so. Huh.
Yeah.
But in a blessed way, not only for you, but for other people. Would you say that with your talents with animal communicator, would you say you could share a story, perhaps of where you saw a good transition
Yeah.
from maybe, okay, share. I'd love to hear that.
You mean a transition, an
From
end of life?
no, no, more like, a fearful dog that you're able to work with and help them become okay, or to be less fearful, or some sort of a behavioral transition is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, let me just think. There are many, many examples.
I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah. So this was a combination of doing consulting and animal communication. Okay. So I worked with a little dog. And one of those dogs that people like, a little white, fluffy um, poodle mix type
Yeah.
dog, and the family had heard about me. And he came to live with them. And this is where we did a blend of animal communication and also in home. I went to their home, they were local, and consulting in terms of how do they need to navigate this. And little Hakuru was his name, Japanese name for a little dog. He was fearful and he was a biter.
Mm.
And when you bite, so that's kind of like the worst offense when you bite people. And little white fluffy dogs can do more things for a longer time than, say, a German Shepherd, like in my case when I was a kid, right? And they were like, and they had gotten him from a rescue organization. So we worked with Hakuru a little bit. And I taught them that his nervous system is totally flooded. We didn't know exactly why. He also didn't show me the stories of the past. That is, in many cases, more of a human thing, that we tell each other tales from our past and how bad it was when I was 8 or 7 or whenever, or whatever it was. And with Hakur, we just knew, okay, he was terrified and he was also really terrified of men. And he just showed that to me. And we worked very, very carefully with how can we make him feel safe. And that's a very elaborate story with him. And then the kicker was, so he didn't, I shouldn't say he liked, he had a tendency when he got startled to nip at the ankles. And sometimes the nips were harder. The kicker was both of his parents were principal dancers with the Oregon Ballet. I live in Oregon.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Not a good thing when you need to use your feet to dance, right? So, and with Hakuru, we very, very slowly worked on reducing stimuli, making it safe. I told her not to take him to dance practices anymore because he sees ankles that move, he gets freaked out and he bites. And they were very devoted and very disciplined in as they really understood they have to chunk it down for their dog.
Mm.
And over time, and I say it even slowly because you got to be patient, he released these habitual fear responses. There were some moments when the man of the house moved too fast, but over time, he was able to release this. And then she did a lot of activities with him to engage his intellect. You know, she taught him a lot of tricks. So he had like things to do with his brain. He wasn't just like put in a corner or in a timeout. You know, so that was a combination of, and when I say this, it's not always that straightforward. They were willing, they were super patient because of their profession. They were super disciplined. They knew how long it took to perfect a skill.
Yeah.
So they were able to help their dog with my guidance. And I'm so glad, because he might not have survived. You know, when you got a few strikes against you and someone reports you, you might lose your life, you know.
Yeah. But yeah, we certainly see that in the news as well.
Yes.
Huh.
Yes.
Well, when we set up our time together, I always ask in advance, what are some of the things that that we can cover or talk about, and as usual, just a normal conversation, because I really don't come into these with a written list of questions. I just know that the conversation will flow. I'll hear something you say, and then we go that direction, and I love that about what we do. And indeed, I'm looking over the things that we had talked about. Never give up when you face challenges with your animals and in yourself. I think you've done a beautiful job of covering that. Empathy and compassion is putting yourself in someone else's shoes, or in this case, pause. And then you also said death can be the greatest teacher. So I'm going to invite you to talk about that in just a moment. And then we're going to be wrapping up. So before you talk about that, how can people reach you? What's the best way for them to connect with you?
They can go to my website, pets-point of view --. And I'm on Facebook. So when you see my name here, I have a personal page. You can DM me there. I have a business page, Pets Point of View on Facebook too. But my website is good. You can sign up for a free talk with me. I talk to people for free. I want to get to know you. You can send me questions. I have a free event coming up in a week. But my website is like the gateway,
Okay.
for social media. You find me there.
So that's pets-point-of-view.com, which, by the way, I totally love. You may or may not know, I design websites as part of some of what I do. And I highly encourage people to consider URLs that are readable, and dashes make it so. They really do.
Ah,
So otherwise, pet's point of view all pushed together, it becomes like you have to decipher
yeah.
where's the word, and it just gets complicated. So that's very easy. So she's offering a free 20-minute discovery session for anybody that wants to visit. So go visit pet's point of view, dashes between all the words.com, and you can have this conversation. So we are going to wrap up here. The time has flown by, as I knew it would, with this fascinating topic. But you did say that death can be the greatest teacher. So as we conclude, often people think of death as a conclusion.
Yeah.
But what do you have to say about that?
I have to say two things. For me, death is not the end. Okay. It's the end of the physical body, and that is painful and it's a loss. No doubt. The connection doesn't end for me. It's not suddenly over. I just feel connection with all of the animals that I lived with, that lived with me, animals of my clients too. The other thing, the greatest teacher is more, is it takes more guts to look at it like that. So what I have found is that if I were to design a bumper sticker, let me go at this way, I would say there is birth and there is death. Those are the great catalysts. Everything in between is entertainment or drama. Okay, that would be my bumper sticker, meaning that birth and death, labor can be very similar, and once upon a time, women could die during childbirth. They still do, but not as often here in our hemisphere, at least, right? But what it does, people think the grief is just about the person or the animal. It flushes out and it flushes to the surface all unprocessed emotions that are there. When people don't get aren't in a space where they can process this, and they keep spiraling and spiraling and spiraling, I wonder, and I've worked with people on this also, are there other emotional knots in your soul that get activated? Because those death is one of the most powerful events that we can experience, because it's not reversible. We cannot talk ourselves out of that. And the rawness that is underneath all of the blame and shame and whatever we do to rationalize it or to explain it away, which a lot of us do, right? Underneath it all is an opportunity to look at deeper things that might surface, acknowledge them, honor them. If it is unbearable, see whether you want to work with someone who is professionally trained to support you,
Absolutely.
So for me, the greatest teacher is that I find there is an amazing opening for me. I'm not afraid of it. I'm not afraid of deep feelings.
Mm.
And I also know that when I'm in a funk and I don't get out, I need to have a look at some other layers in my own psyche that got activated. That for me is a great teaching moment. I have people in my trainings, and it happens to me too. When I think I'm like sailing on even waters, and then there is one massive occurrence, I'm like, oh, I have to revisit that painful part in me again. And then I do. That's why I call death is the greatest teacher, and also the greatest teacher in the sense of there can be an opening, there can be a freedom. I'm relieved for my animals often when they don't have pain anymore. It's a relief. I celebrate that. I cry and I sob, and I also celebrate it. And I do a happy dance because they're free from that. Ugh.
Yeah, for sure.
So those are for me two aspects,
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I can't say thank you enough for spending this time with me and with our audience and with the replay audience. And once again, everybody, isn't she just lovely? You just get a sense of warmth just listening to her and her beautiful smile. And I mean, you can see why she is trusted by not only pets, but also the pet owners to work with them. So remember, please go check out her website at petspointofview.com with the dashes between all the words. And I am going to just wrap up here for a moment. But thank you, Ute. It's been wonderful today with this. To your last point, I'm looking forward to in the future. I do have a guest in mind. We haven't committed to a date yet that actually does help also to deal with trauma in people without the talk therapy, without even revisiting. So she will work with you and not even know what she's working on. It's a fascinating, fascinating therapy that I've actually experienced. So that's coming sometime.
Nice.
Depends on when I can get her onto the calendar. It might not be till later this summer. So, but again, thank you for your time and your talents and your generosity and just all the wonderful families that you've impacted the lives of all these pets. So you're beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was so much fun.
And for everyone else, thank you also for joining me on this journey to unleash your joyful business potential. Because truly, I mean, she's done all this, but she's built a business doing this. And we didn't really dive into that today so much. But, it's when we do what we love, Mark Twain said it, we never work a day in our lives. You can see the joy on her face talking about what she loves to do. I hope you see it on mine as well. And remember that leadership is a voyage that we take together. So keep shining and keep aligning with your purpose. And come on back every week, 2 p.m. Pacific time, exclusively on winwinwomen.tv for our next inspiring episode. And until next time, I am LeAnn, your Chief Joy Officer, signing off. Keep leading with heart, and I'll catch you on the next wave of success. Farewell, and keep spreading the joy.